Pope Francis is visiting Myanmar, and on Wednesday he attended a large mass in Yangon.
People are watching closely to see how the Pope would address the ongoing humanitarian crisis involving Rohingya Muslims. Cholapansa Narula in Bangkok has more.
It's the third day of the Pope's first visit to the predominantly Buddhist country. The spiritual leader didn't mention the Rohingya by name, but he noted that many are suffering in the country and urged people not to seek revenge.
I know that many in Myanmar bear the wounds of violence, wounds both visible and invisible. We think that healing can come from anger and revenge, yet the way of revenge is not the way of Jesus.
About 150,000 worshippers gathered at the Mass. Many of them had made long journeys to get to Yangon. The Pope delicately avoided referring to the Rohingya minority by name, but some worshippers spoke about their sufferings.
Conflicts still exist, and many people were forced to leave their homes in Myanmar. I hope peace will come as quickly as possible.
I wish for peace from the heart. I pray for people in Rakhine State. I hope God will bless them.
More than 620,000 Rohingya have fled to neighboring Bangladesh since August to escape violence by Myanmar's military. The US and the United Nations have described the situation as a campaign of ethnic cleansing to drive out the Rohingya from Rakhine State. Myanmar rejects those claims. Our reporter Roslyn de Bavalia is in Yangon. She has been covering the Pope's visit. Roslyn, the Pope hasn't referred to the Rohingya crisis directly on this trip. What is behind this reticence?
The Pope apparently chose not to use the word Rohingya to avoid a diplomatic backlash, preferring to emphasize reconciliation in his addresses. His speech on Tuesday to Aung San Suu Kyi and other government representatives was also cautiously worded.
Religious differences need not be a source of division and distrust, but rather a force for unity, forgiveness, tolerance, and wise nation building.
The Pope has previously used the term Rohingya and called for them to enjoy full rights. Human rights groups urged him to use the term publicly in Myanmar, where they say the military has engaged in a campaign of ethnic cleansing. But Myanmar's government rejects the term. Instead, it refers to the Muslim minority as illegal migrants from neighboring Bangladesh. Local Catholic leaders in Myanmar also advised the Pope that using the term would only aggravate matters and put the country's tiny Catholic population at risk. Only around 700,000 people in Myanmar are Catholics, accounting for slightly more than 1% of the population.
What effect will the Pope's visit have on the stance of the country's leadership on the Rohingya issue?
It's hard to say, but Aung San Suu Kyi has faced widespread criticism for not demanding that the military stop the violence. The Pope said in the Mass that many in Myanmar bear the wounds of violence. He was apparently referring to the decades of conflict between the military and Myanmar's ethnic minorities, as well as the recent mass exodus of Rohingya Muslims. These conflicts could continue today in parts of the country. An expert on Myanmar's politics says the government will face a backlash from the country's minority peoples if it does not change its stance.
If they don't listen to him, or if they don't use this message, his presence or his visit constructively, it will be fatal for them. He's coming to help not only the Myanmar people and the society and the refugees, but also the leadership.
The Pope will visit Bangladesh on the second leg of his trip from Thursday. He's expected to meet with Rohingya people in the capital, Dhaka. Myanmar and Bangladesh came to an agreement last week on the repatriation of hundreds of thousands of Rohingya Muslims. The two countries say the process will begin within 2 months, but no deadline has been given for its completion. Aid agencies are also concerned that the refugees may be forcibly returned to unsafe conditions. All attention is on what the Pope will say in Bangladesh and on how his words could facilitate the process of resolving the humanitarian crisis.